Aloha, my name is Keoni Williams. I'm a founding member of Every1ne Hawaii and an incoming law student at the William S. Richardson School of Law. I'm interested in public policy and I currently work at the Hawaii State Legislature.
Aloha kako, my name is Mana Shim. I'm a second-year law student and incoming alaka'i of ʻAhahui o Hawaii at William S. Richardson School of Law. I am interested in environmental and Native Hawaiian law, and I'm currently a legal intern at Hawaiian Islands Land Trust.
We are your co-hosts for this exciting discussion with the 2020 Honolulu Mayoral candidates. Here this afternoon, we're at the beautiful Ka Waiwai in Mo'iliili.
The ʻAhahui o Hawaiʻi Advocates for Native Hawaiian Justice, a student organization, along with Every1ne Hawaii, Aloha Rising, the Native Hawaiian Education Council, and Waiwai Collective have partnered to host this discussion. The purpose is to give our mayoral candidates an opportunity to express their stances on issues of particular concern to the Millennial and Gen Z demographics, that's age 18 to 38, as part of an effort to encourage young people to vote.
Mahalo, Mana. This event is made possible by the following generous sponsors. Every1ne Hawaii. Every1ne Hawaii is a Hawaii-based 501c3 nonprofit organization fueled by a network of Hawaii's emerging leaders, creatives, and influencers, united in aloha for this place we call home. Motivated by the responsibility to shape our future, we are prepared to tackle challenges head-on and create lasting impact. We are dedicated and well-positioned to create a movement alongside the next generation of Hawaii and their ohana to impact Hawaii's future.
Aloha Rising, Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Aloha Rising is a get-out-the-vote effort focused on connecting culture and kuleana with civic engagement. Launched by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, this effort aims to increase participation by providing opportunities for the community to meaningfully engage in the election process.
Native Hawaiian Education Council. Established in 1994 under the federal Native Hawaiian Education Act, the Native Hawaiian Education Council coordinates, assesses, and reports on the effectiveness of existing education programs for Native Hawaiians and the state of present Native Hawaiian education efforts. The Council also makes recommendations to improve existing programs, policies, and procedures to increase the educational attainment of Native Hawaiians.
Waiwai Collective. Waiwai Collective is a group of Native Hawaiian entrepreneurs who share kuleana and a passion for uplifting the lahui. Through their work, they have seen an extraordinary power of physical community when people come together with purpose and aloha.
Mahalo nui to our sponsor organizations. We're especially grateful for Ka Waiwai's diligence in handling COVID-19 safety precautions. We all want to know that, we want all of you to know that safety is of paramount importance to us. And we here in Ka Waiwai are showing our aloha for one another by wearing our face masks.
We're excited to engage our audience in this interactive experience. Please type in the comments now where you are tuning in from and your age if you're comfortable sharing.
Let's see who's here. Oh, I see Erica's tuning in with a handshake. Aloha from Danny. Elena's tuning in from Makiki. Kilani from Honolulu. We have ages, we see people in the 20s, 30s, early 40s. Well, this is moving fast. There's a lot of you on there.
Everyone's 18 to 38.
There we go.
Other people, 41. Okay, let's get started. Please remember that anytime during this live broadcast, you're welcome to ask questions through the chat function, and we will try our best to have your questions answered.
Great. Let's introduce our audience to the 2020 mayoral candidates. We are honored to have Keith Amemiya, Colleen Hanabusa, Mufi Hanneman, Choon James, Kimberly Marcos Pine, and Bud Stonebraker with us this afternoon. Candidates who are invited but unable to join us for this event include Hoyin Jason Wong, Rick Langiardi, David Burgoy, Zachary Bird, Ernest Carvalho, John Carroll, Carl Dix, Tim Gary, Wesley Haviland, Audrey Keesing, John McLeod, and Micah Muscle.
Thank you. It's quite stacked race.
It is a very full race.
Okay, for our audience, we randomly selected an order in which our candidates will give an introduction as well as answer questions. So I will give you the order now. It is the order in which they're sitting. It will be Kym Pine up first, then Bud Stonebraker, Colleen Hanabusa, Choon James, Amemiya, and finally Mufi Hanneman.
Sounds great.
Here we go. First up, Kym Pine, you have a minute to introduce yourself.
Okay. Which camera are we looking at? Okay. Aloha. My name is Kym Pine, and I'm really honored to be here with all of you here today. I thank the many organizations that have given us this wonderful opportunity to be with all of you today. I'm running because I believe that we need some change in Hawaii. As a mother of a 5-year-old, I have strived my entire career in public office, and I want to fight for as mayor to make Honolulu more affordable, safe, efficient, ethical, and most importantly, resilient. We have for too long depended on the outside world to feed ourselves. We have for too long depended on the federal government with a handout and the state government with a handout to help us to have a resilient economy. As mayor, I will lead the effort to show the world that we are smart enough, that we are capable enough to have our own economy and our own educational systems that help us not just to survive, but to thrive. Mahalo for having me here today. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Next candidate.
Aloha, my name is Bud Stonebraker. I was born and raised in Hawaii here. I was born in Wahiawa, raised on the North Shore. I grew up in the country and then later down in Hawaii Kai side. And currently I live in Waimanalo and God's country out there. And I'm running for mayor because even though I got out of politics 16 years ago or 14 years ago or so, I decided that it was time that somebody runs that would be the voice of the people. We believe that for too long, people have spoken and they've tried to let the government hear their voices, and yet they're not listening. Right now, there's a bill in the House and the Senate that is going to the governor to give him more power through his Department of Health to continue these lockdowns, even though they're unconstitutional. The people of Hawaii have not been heard by their government. And I am a kalo farmer. I am a pastor of a small ministry. We do work in our community feeding the homeless. We plant kalo for people that are in need. And I believe that it's time that we have a voice of common sense in our lands. We need to renovate and renew and restructure many areas of our city government. The Department of Planning and Permitting needs to be completely restructured so that we can move forward with good plans for affordable housing. We need also to work with the Department of Transportation Services to clean our roads. We need to clean up Honolulu, and I believe that I'm the candidate to do that. Aloha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next.
Colleen Hanabusa.
Good afternoon and aloha, and thank you for hosting this. I stand before you, 4th generation from Waiʻanae, and someone who has grown up with the influence of our great culture. I am also standing before you as one of the proud graduates of the William S. Richardson School of Law. I want you to all know one thing. I do know that what we are faced with in our society is the fact that the treatment of Native Hawaiians has not been something that everyone can be proud of. You know, before coming here, I gave a class on Japanese flower arrangements. And the reason why that was very appropriate is that I told everyone there, the Japanese flower arrangement, Shim, which is the primary branch, represents the strength of the arrangement and your soul. And I said, the Shing has always represented to me the host culture. So thank you for having us, and I look forward to this discussion.
Up next, Choon James.
Aloha, I am so happy to be here. My husband actually just retired as a professor. We used to have kids come to our house all the time and have potluck, and COVID-19 has certainly stopped everything to that. I have been at the city council for decades, fighting for keep the country, save Oahu farmlands, keep public lands in public hands, and so on and so forth. And recently, I have been focusing on fiscal prudence. And you know what? We have been fighting on the outside for so long. It is time for us to get inside. That is where the real change comes. We must get on the inside so that we can serve our people and that we can take the government back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, Keith Amemiya.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Keith Amemiya, and I'm running for mayor because we need change. We need new leadership. We need a fresh perspective. We need to restore trust in government. I'm running for mayor because I care about our communities, and I want to create a better future for all of us, especially our younger generations. I've been on the campaign trail for the last 10 months, and two issues keep coming up time and time again. Number one, people want change, and number two, they're concerned about the high cost of living. They're concerned about change, and they're concerned about the status quo, and they don't want that anymore. They want new leadership. They also are tired of worrying about making ends meet and making hard decisions about whether to pay rent or put food on the table, and even more difficult decisions like staying here and struggling or moving away to the mainland and uprooting their family and moving away from their family and friends. My campaign is rooted in values such as trust, integrity, inclusiveness, and working together with the community. I look forward to listening and learning from the hosts of today's forum on how we can best partner to create a better Oahu for all of us. Mahalo.
Thank you. Up next, Mufi Hanneman.
Aloha mai kako. I'm Mufi Hanneman. Very proud of the fact that I'm a keiki o ka aina. Growing up in Kalihi, I had wonderful opportunities to be mentored by many outstanding kupuna. Auntie Mahilona, Annie Mahilona, who gave me my Hawaiian name of Pomaikalani. And through the years as your mayor, I was blessed with the wise wisdom of Auntie Frenchie DeSoto, of Auntie Nikki Hines from Waimanalo, Auntie Joan Lindsay from Pearl City. And today, I'm very, very blessed to have the support of Vicky Hotakamine, cultural practitioners, as well as Robert Casamaro and others. I come before you today with an outstanding record when I was mayor, of always standing tall for things that were very important to the Hawaiian community. I look forward to this discussion today so that you can see what I did in the past. As a two-time mayor, I'm ready to go forward to meet the challenges that face us today. Mahalo, aloha keako.
Mahalo to all of our candidates. This is a very diverse group in the running for Mayor 2020.
Indeed. We'll now move into the question portion of our discussion. We will ask the same questions to all of our mayoral candidates, and we'll ask them in the order in which they're seated from left to right, and each of them will have 3 minutes to respond to these questions.
First, we want to talk about a word that comes up often in these questions and hopefully the answers. It is equity. Equity means fairness, and it can be defined as the quality of treating individuals fairly based on their needs and requirements. Equity ensures that all the individuals are provided the resources they need to have access to the same opportunities. Our production team has pulled a graphic to show you what equity looks like.
Mahalo for explaining that, Mana. Now let's get to our first question. The framework of Aina Aloha Economic Futures places Aina, community, and equity as the foundational pieces for economic recovery in light of the coronavirus pandemic, which has exposed fundamental issues with Hawaii's economic base. Provided that context, what would you change as mayor to ensure those foundational tenets are achieved?
First up, Bud Stonebraker.
Oh, she's skipping?
Oh, am I going to be first
It's-
for everyone?
Kym Pine doesn't want to be the first one to answer the question.
Oh, no, I'll do it. We usually
Um,
take turns.
The issue that we're facing in Honolulu right now there are many issues that we have to take stock of. First of all, the coronavirus situation has shut down our entire economic base, our economic engine that is driving. And as much as we would love to get out of this condition that we're in, without tourism is the economic driver. And if we don't allow this to run immediately, we won't have an economy that can be diversified later. I farm kalo, and I recognize that Hawaii's one of the most important things that we need is to grow our own food. We are an island state that needs money coming in because we don't have sustainable farming. We import about 90% of all of our goods and our food. There's no reason why we should be bringing in mangoes from Peru and bananas from Ecuador. We can grow our own food, and that will serve to bring us into a more diversified economy. But in many ways, we are like an aquarium. And though we have different species in fish and different kinds of things, we don't generate our own food. And that's a problem. And because of that, we need food to be dropped into our economy. And that is the tourist market. And we are down right now. We will probably not see those numbers that we've seen in the past that were, for many people, 30,000 people a day coming into Hawaii were too much. We understand that. But unless we allow them to come back in immediately, none of our other economies will stay afloat. Airlines might shut down their routes here. People are going to lose jobs in areas that they never imagined. And there could be a large exodus. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to open our economy. And while we do that, we can also restructure our Department of Planning and Permitting to allow more ag land to be used for affordable housing and farming. When we do that, then we can begin to grow and heal as a city where we're more balanced in our approach to our economic driver and our economic needs. And so I feel that the direction of my campaign is right in line with those same values. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Up
you.
next, Colleen Hanabusa.
Can we speak without our masks?
Yeah.
Aina aloha, which is the word that you're hearing more and more about, reminds me when I was Senate President and the word was sustainability. And really, what does it mean? It means different things to different people. When I looked at sustainability, I told people what it meant to me was a friend of mine, Senator Russell Kokoboom from the Big Island, being able to watch his grandchildren grow, because that meant things were pono, things were okay. Aina aloha, to me, is raising that same fundamental concept. But because of different kinds of efforts, the awareness and people becoming very sensitive to that which is Hawaii and that which the Native Hawaiians are going through, primarily what happened at TMT, I think people are beginning to recognize that it means more than that. Fundamentally, equity is an important issue. However, it's how do you go about getting it? I've always felt that one of the greatest equalizers, and that's why it's so good to see them here and have the Native Hawaiian part of the UH Law School sponsor this, it is education. And being a product of Waiʻanae, one of the things that I've always felt is that if we didn't have hope and pride, we need hope and pride. If we didn't have those two components, we would not see the next generation move forward. So one of the most critical parts is education and what we can do as a city and county of Honolulu to assist those in education. Because unless people have that opportunity, we are not going to see equity achieved. Aina aloha, aina, putting our lands forward with aloha are very important concepts. However, how to execute that, especially in the time of COVID that we are dealing with now, the issue is going to be how do we measure health, welfare, safety of the people, balanced with, of course, the pressure of economic revitalization and economic recovery. And this is where the two concepts could possibly come into great contrast and clash. You'll have people say, oh, don't worry, we'll be able to put the two together. It's probably not necessarily true. We are a tourism-based economy. Tourism-based economies do not lend itself, I believe, to aina aloha. So We must take this opportunity as one where we can work together, and we need to work together, come to an understanding as to how do we balance these issues. And the most important thing is that young people like them, their millennial friends, have a place at the table, because it is their future that we are planning. So they must have a say in what that future looks like. Mahalo.
You can put your.
Thank you. Since we get Kimberly Marcos
I
time,
mean,
please
I
feel
don't
free
mind
to.
going, but we should take turns going first. It's just best that way. Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank you so much for this question, because this is the core of my campaign. And this is why I'm running for mayor of this city. This is a very important time where we will decide our future, and if my daughter has one here in Hawaii. Several years ago, as the chair of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee of the City Council, I analyzed our economy, and I said, we are at great risk. We have depended too much on tourism for us to feed ourselves and to survive. I want to tell all of you who are watching today, especially the Native Hawaiian community, to let you know you do not have to buy into this concept that we have to sell our land, sell our water, sell our ocean to survive. Our Native culture have taught us what we have now forgotten, that we can thrive here, living off of the sun and the earth and the water and the moon. Many, many years ago, Senator Brown had stated, if the economy is taken from this land, then we are giving what we cannot give. But if an economy is nourished by this land and creates products that we can either export or use here, then that is the economy that we can have. In the 1980s, we had an economy of tourism that brought in $18 billion with inflation of today. Today, we bring almost the same, or actually a little less than that amount. But you know what the difference is? We have half the tourists that we did. We have double the tourists, than we did in the 80s. Double the tourists. That means you are paying more for our parks and our beaches and our lifeguards and to live. If you're feeling pinched, it's because we are headed in the wrong direction. Well, I believe that we are smart enough to create our own economies from the earth, from our water, that we're smart enough to have new technologies to show the world that the people of Hawaii are the smartest people in the world. We have everything that we need to create new economies, to export new products that the world wants. I have been teased in the last couple of years that I have been supporting Native Hawaiians and Polynesians throughout Polynesia who believe that ulu, breadfruit, which can be a multi-billion-dollar economy here, while partnering with 80,000 farmers, that is another part of our economy, along with other agricultural products that we can only grow here that the world wants. From these agricultural products, there is health cures. There is new economies for beauty products that is a multi-billion-dollar product. There are new products that can create gluten-free products that is a multi-billion-dollar economy, and we can create it right here. I believe in us, and as mayor, I will make sure that we'll never depend on an economy that allows the outside world to feed us again. We will feed ourselves. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Choon James.
For decades now, we have actually been telling our legislators and those decision makers that we really need to go back to the basics. We need to go back to the Oahu General Plan that was set up in the 1970s. We need to follow the Hawaii 2050 plan and our sustainable and development plans. We here in Oahu, we already have the framework. We have the framework to make sure that we take care of the economy, that we balance the tourism versus other trades and commercialism. It is all in that very dynamic document called the Oahu General Plan. And guess what? Every year we have to fight at the city council. We have to fight elsewhere to tell them, please do not pave over egglands. Please diversify. Please do not throw billions and billions of dollars into a runaway train that is going to create so much tax burdens on the backs of our people. And do they listen? No. That is the reason why I'm here today running, because I want to be on the inside to make the changes. And also, may I talk a little bit about equity. Equity is a basic human right. So is environmental justice, so is social justice, so is economic justice. And all those come into play if everyone is given a seat at the table. And for years, we know, for years, there is an oligarchy in Hawaii. It's a very small elite group, and they control the power, they control the land, they control the money, and they control the opportunities. Just a good case is the Kahuku wind turbines. For years, the people of Kahuku were fighting and saying, no, we do not want more industrial turbines in our community, because they already had 12. And this community, again, had to be foisted another 8 on. And so the people rejected, the people protested. Guess what? Nobody listened. Despite all the protests, if you go to the North Shore, you will see those turbines there. And that is what I'm talking about when we talk about equity. That is not equity. Whatever we do, whatever decision we make, it must have environmental justice, it must have social justice, it must also have economic justice. And this is one of the reasons why I'm running. So really, we just need to go back to the basics. We have all the framework. We just need to make sure we protect it and control it, and not let the oligarchy keep pushing the envelope and pushing us out of Hawaii.
Thank you. Up next, Amemiya.
Well, before I go into my remarks, I'd like to thank the Waiwai Collective for hosting today's forum. I've been here for many productive discussions, and I look forward to more of the same today. I'd also like to thank the Aina Aloha Economic Futures Coalition for putting together an excellent framework. In reviewing it, it's an excellent roadmap to lead us back to recovery and prosperity down the road. It was put together by a good cross-section of our community, and it will lead us to a healthy, sustainable future. COVID-19 has caused a lot of harm to our economy, to our communities, and to our people. But it's also an opportunity to reset and address the issues that we've talked about for many, many years, but failed to do anything about, whether it's over-tourism or diversifying our economy. Like the Economic Futures Plan, I've put together a recovery plan called the Oahu Recovery Plan that consists of 3 components: healthy people, healthy economy, and healthy environment. All are interdependent on each other, and we need all to work in order for us to succeed. In terms of some specific issues that have been brought up throughout the communities and are of concern to many people, I'll first address Aina or land issues. It's clear that government has poorly managed land stewardship. It's clear because of the protests involving the water stream issues on Maui or back here, such as Sherwood Forest in Waimanalo or the Kahuku wind farms. Government needs to do a better job of stewarding land and working with our communities to come up with amicable solutions. In terms of how we address the land issues, well, let's start with the framework. It's a great tool, a great guide map, as I said earlier. I've also want to utilize the assessment tool or assessment form that the Economic Futures Coalition has used. Again, it's an excellent guidepost or plan and roadmap to decide whether we should go forward with projects across the island that are of importance to everyone in the community. In terms of diversifying the economy, we need to stop our over-reliance on tourism. three areas that I want to focus on are agriculture, aquaculture, and perhaps renewable energy as well. All three can be viable industries in Hawaii, and all three are important. In terms of agriculture, we can replicate the success story of Ho'okua'aina in Kailua or in the windward side, and Paipai o Heia. Both are great success stories. I've been to Paipai o Heia, and I hope to visit Ho'okua'aina with Uncle Earl Kava'a and others in the short-term future. We also need to address our community issues and equity issues, and I hope to do that as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Amemiya. Up next, Mufi Hanneman.
The campaign season brings out a lot of promises, a lot of platitudes. But at the end of the day, it also takes a track record of actually getting things done. We all want a more resilient tourism. We all also want to see one that is compatible with the sustainability. And most importantly, we have to make sure that Native Hawaiian voices are at the table. And not just at the table, but making sure that you are listening and you embrace what they're trying to say. Here is a wonderful opportunity to take this crisis that we're facing now. People are saying too many tourists are coming here. Let's try to do a model that says, in fact, that we want you to come here in a healthy and safe position, and also be able to embrace the fact that this is not the Hawaii that you used to see. Secondly, let's bring businesses back responsibly. I did two things when I was on the city council that I think speak to the fact is I'm listening to the Native Hawaiian community, and I am the best person now to embrace your concerns. Waimea Valley was saved under my watch. And we put together a hui, folks that were very interested from the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Trust for Public Lands. The state was involved also, and the city and county of Honolulu, and the military. We faced a situation whereby we did not have enough money to purchase that valley. I took it upon myself to go and see the landowner. He just happened to be of German descent. Hanneman is German. We found common ground. A few minutes later, we had a deal. And Waimea Valley now is forever enshrined with the responsibility of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, so that the Hawaiian people can feel very proud of that, but most importantly, it's a place where we all, present generation today, future generations tomorrow. Let's take Hanauma Bay. I was on the council at that time. The mayor then wanted to charge a fee for people to go down to the bay. I was not satisfied that that fee would go into the general fund. I said, if we're going to charge a fee, first of all, do not charge local people to use the beach. That's anathema to everything that we believe in here in Hawaii. I spoke very strongly against that. Secondly, I said those funds should go into a special fund for the preservation, the maintenance, and education of Hanauma Bay. I'm glad to see that the council now, under the leadership of Tommy Waters, has come up with a bill that will strengthen that. Those are the kind of things that I believe very strongly in. And I will take that same resolve into this position that we're facing now. I signed up to be a member of Aina Aloha. Why? Because John DeFries and Governor John Waihee, two of the folks that I talked to today about what can we do to embrace more of the Hawaiian culture, advise that I do that. I've got no problem doing that because that is how I always govern. Waimanalo Sherwood Forest would not have happened under my watch where I'm mayor. Why? Because I would have taken the time to go into the community. That's what leaders do. They don't hide behind their experts or their consultants. They don't hide behind their cabinet. They lead out front. They sit in uncomfortable situations. They try to find common ground. And that's what you'll have with Mufi Hanneman as mayor. Send me back to my old job. We will bring Hawaii back. But most importantly, we'll do it in a manner that future generations will say, wow, they really took that pandemic crisis, they took it seriously, and they brought about a new Hawaii. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mufi Hanneman.
Okay, thank you. That's it for our first question. Those were some interesting answers. I appreciate all of you saying that the tourism industry is all we have and it's over, game over. There are obviously other solutions and we appreciate all of your answers.
Yeah, and I also noticed that a lot of you guys touched upon the current state of the economy. People our age are dealing with rent issues. Housing is a huge issue, and according to the Aloha United Way, 42% of Hawaii's households are ALICE, which for our viewers stands for asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So these people are working 1, 2, 3 jobs to make ends meet. And even though they're trying to do everything that they can, they still can't cover their basic necessities. Not to mention all the people that are now falling into houselessness when they're no longer able to cover these basic necessities.
Yeah, that's a very real reality for us, even amongst the law students. We don't expect to be house owners, homeowners anytime soon. And
Yeah,
what about you?
I think I'll be paying rent for a very long time. Even with the law degree, we'll see what that means in the long term. I did want to share an infographic that we had prepped with our audience here. Go ahead and share that. It basically is showing a breakdown of our ALICE communities here in Hawaii, pulled from the Aloha United Way report.
And if you could, viewers, let us know if you are in that category, if you are in ALICE. That would be really helpful for us to know, to share with the candidates, just so they have an idea.
Yeah, let's go ahead and drop a poll. The question will be, do you identify as an ALICE household?
Okay, they're coming in. Wow,
coming in.
quickly. We have a lot of viewers. Yes, yes,
Pulling
yes,
up
yes.
the
No,
poll.
no, no, no,
Okay,
no.
okay.
We're reminding them what ALICE is. Do y'all remember?
All right. Now that we gave a big basic overview on ALICE and pulled our audience, please keep the questions coming in. By the way, we are reading them as we go. You want to go into our question number 2?
Sure. You think it's time? We've got enough answers here.
Let's pull up could we go to the poll just so we can see what our numbers are? Okay, we have about 50% polling as no, 25% polling as yes, and another 25% as not sure.
Okay, question number 2. Considering the effect the cost of housing has on the decision for many young people from Hawaii to move away. I've had a lot of friends move away. Excuse me. Have you had friends move away?
I've had family move away.
Oh, even worse. Because of the price of housing, what action do you propose to create sustainable, affordable housing that will preserve our agriculture lands and natural resources? Up first.
We can start with a different order. So Colleen Hanabusa, please.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting statistic on your poll, 50% saying no. You know, ALICE is an interesting and a very critical study that was done to show us where people are. When I was Senate President, one of the first initiatives we did back in 2008 was called Sustainability 2050. Part of the participants of Sustainability 2050 were 12 high school seniors who were all headed for Mainland College. We asked them one question: how many of you are coming back? Not one hand went up. And when we asked them why, housing. They didn't feel that Hawaii had a place for them. The second response was, and we don't think Hawaii is going to have the kind of jobs for us that we can then afford the housing that we want. When I went to Congress, one of the things I wanted to find out was transit-oriented development and how it was done right. So my condo was part of what is called the Wharf, which is on the Potomac, probably an example of TOD done right. And half of the project were affordable rentals, most of them very young people living there, working on the Hill. And it was a very eye-opening experience for me, because what it told me was what I've been saying all along. When we in government think about planning and we think about addressing all these issues, the fundamental thing we have got to keep in mind is that you've got to talk to the people who we want to have come back, the millennials, the young guys, and we've got to ask them, how do they want to live? what was interesting to me is they like the lifestyle of almost a minimalist kind of existence. They didn't want the sprawling urban core. They liked that. They liked the TOD. And I asked them, well, how many of you, when you have children, are going to want to not have a house with the 2 cars and so forth? And they told me, you know, we watch our parents downsize, so they're going to live like us. So we think, we're in a good place. And when you think about that, you think, you know, it's time for government to rethink. And of course, their main point is we do not want to be a slave to a mortgage or a car payment or anything like that. So it's a totally different lifestyle that we must think about. But I do want to say one thing. When I first got elected, the issue of the waitlist claims of Hawaiian homes was up. That was in 1999, the first year I was in office. As you know, the Hawaii Supreme Court issued a scathing decision in Kalima. Think about this. Here are people who've waited for 20 years. When I started, 7 had passed. Now almost 300 have passed. Government has not done a good job. This is the fiduciary obligation that government has to the Native Hawaiians, and they have not done a good job. So come to the table with me and discuss what you want your future to look like. Don't leave it up to just government. Mahalo.
Thank you, Colleen Hanabusa. Up next, Choon James.
You know, there's a little secret that we can't seem to get it out too far, is that we honestly don't need the Honolulu Rail to have a thought development. Thought meaning transit-oriented development. You can have a thought around a bus stop. Why would we need to plunge in billions and billions of dollars to have that antiquated rail today? We could have spent that billions and billions of dollars creating more affordable housing and more affordable rentals. I know that the term Singapore model has been spreading around, and I am from Singapore. I know what the program looks like. I was part of that program in my early years. Singapore is able to do their affordable housing and their affordable rental because there is no middleman. The government, of course, we cannot emulate everything that Singapore does, but the government is very strict. The government makes sure that there's no cost overrun and that even the rentals are not tied to our so-called hard median income. You may want to know that a hard median income for low income is now 92,000. In Singapore, it is gauged towards your real income. So if you're making 50,000, then you're going to pay less rent than if you were making 70,000. So what I'm also saying is that real has also brought a lot of burdens into our cost of living. Mayor Caldwell had to impose a residential A property tax. And the residential A property tax has actually tripled the property tax of our local landlords. And guess what? When the landlord is placed with a lot of property tax, guess who is going to get the consequences? The renters, right? And again, I go back to the Oahu general plan. There are places for us to build. There are places for us to build rentals for affordable housing. And there must also be places set aside for agricultural lands and so forth. And I also want to say that I want to put a property tax cap on our property owners who have lived here and who have owned homes for 20 years or more. This will help stabilize the housing issue. If we do not do that, our kupuna, your uncle, your auntie, your grandpa, your grandma, they are all going to be priced out because of cost of living. So the sky is the limit. There are many, many ways that we can fix this problem, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Choon James. Up next, Keith Amemiya.
I think we're all in agreement that there's a housing crisis here on Oahu. But having said that, I'm firmly against any housing being developed on agricultural lands that can be farmed. There are ways to address our housing shortage. One of those ways is via my Housing for All plan that I unveiled earlier this year. It's composed of 3 key parts. Number 1, focus on building for Oahu residents and not out-of-state residents. Number 2, curbing the activities that depress the housing inventory and cause housing costs to increase, such as illegal vacation rentals. And third, provide incentives to build housing in the urban core, whether that's building infrastructure that's needed before development, like sewer and water, or speeding up the building permit process, which is taking far too long. Those 3 areas taken together will greatly increase our housing inventory and have helped reduce the cost of living here on our island. In terms of specific projects, we need to do more Kahau Village projects. I was involved in that project. It's a great success story. It's a combination of public, private, and nonprofit sectors getting involved to build a community within a relatively fast period of time, about 1 year. The project houses 600 people, including 300 children, 144 units in all, and it's a great success story that as I said, should be replicated. And in fact, there are plans in the works to build more Kahau villages, and that's a good thing. We also need to look at other types of housing that haven't been utilized as much in the past, but should be explored here in Hawaii so that our young people and even our kupuna can afford to live here. These ideas include communal housing, micro units, affordable rentals, and the like. These ideas have been successful elsewhere, and I know they'll be successful here. Taken together, if we work together, I know we can address the housing shortage on this island. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith Amemiya. Up next, Mufi Hanneman.
Once again, this question speaks to my record as mayor. I made a pledge when I ran in 2004 that the first act I would sign into law was requiring mandatory lease-to-fee conversion. And I made good on that promise because folks who at that point in time had these long-term leases had no hope whatsoever to actually own the land under that property. We made it happen. The second thing is I took to heart special circumstances with Kuleana lands. What we did, working with the council, we put together a tax exemption for Kuleana landowners so they will only pay $100. These are the kind of things that I've done in the past that says, when it comes to solving a housing crisis, especially with the ʻAhahui population, I'm prepared to roll up my sleeves to do it. Mention was made of the transit-oriented development. That is a wonderful opportunity to create more affordable rentals, affordable housing. Along that corridor, from Middle Street to Chinatown, where the rail will be built, the state wants to do 10,000 affordable rental units. My pledge is to come in and do that project right. It's not about pointing fingers of how the costs went out of control, but we know this much. If done right, if done not on the backs of the taxpayers, as my pledge is this, we will do rail and we won't finance the construction through property taxes. I want to be clear on that. That was my pledge in 2005. I'll say it again. We'll use private sector dollars. We'll use federal dollars to do that. And if we've come to a point where we can't go forward anymore, we will take a pause. We will take a pause till the time is right to pursue it, because it is worth pursuing because of affordable rentals. I will also go after illegal vacation rentals in neighborhoods. That's one of the reasons why you're paying 4 or 5 times more than you would normally pay, because they shouldn't be existing in neighborhoods and communities. I've said this, they should compete with the lodging community where they are deemed legal and zoned legally. And those are in resort areas where they pay the GET, where they pay the TAT, but not in neighborhoods and communities. And last but not least, I I really believe that this is an opportunity also to diversify this economy in the right way. Tourism will always be our strength, but there are other ways to continue to bring vibrant new initiatives based on arts tourism, sports tourism, film tourism, agritourism. And as we continue to chase that silver bullet out there for truly an economic diversification initiative, be it in innovative technology, be it in health, be it in medicine, whatever it might be, let's keep focusing on that. But in the short term, we need to put people back to work. We need to address the affordable housing situation. And my administration will put a laser-like focus on that because we know how the DPP works and operates. And we're going to go in there and work with the civil servants and make them see this is a major priority. We want to get it done.
Thank you, Mufi Hanneman. We have two people left. Up next, Kimberly Marcos Pine.
Thank you so much for letting us take turns. Did I scare you? I'm so sorry.
This is how
From
we do
the
it.
West Side, we're always looking for equality and fairness, right?
There you go.
Otherwise, you're going to let Mufi Hanneman have the last word on everything if we didn't change that around. So thank you so much. Thank you for this question. This is the core of why I wake up every morning when I serve on the city council. I represent some of the lowest income residents on the whole island. And I have a third of the homeless population in my district. I know suffering and I know homelessness. And I know what it's like for people to just want a roof over their head that they can afford. I'm glad that Mufi Hanneman has talked about having a record because I'm the only candidate here that actually has a real record of passing sweeping legislation for affordable housing to be built on this island. We told developers, if you are going to make money off of our land here on this precious place, that if you are building 10 units or more, you are required to build affordable housing. You're not going to be able to pay it out and not have to build it like what happened before. You will build affordable housing units. It was the most controversial piece of legislation that I've ever had to work on. Everyone told me that it could not be done. But we said if we could do this, we could build thousands of units immediately without a single taxpayer dollar being used. But after a year of negotiation with both the people against and for, over 100 stakeholders, there were 50-50 on the issue. We came to a place and we brought people together because when you come together, uniting each other with love for the people, you can accomplish great things. I also worked on as zoning and housing chair to change the different types of zoning in the apartment zone. We were having monster houses being built next to grandma's house in Kaimuki because the zoning allowed that. And we found out when I asked these developers, why are you building an apartment next to grandma's house? They said, well, the zoning in an apartment zone doesn't allow us to do it if you have 20,000 square feet or less. So we came up with innovative legislation that expanded the zoning in that area to actually build in high dense areas where you couldn't before. And I'm excited to say that there are 19 builders. They're going to build right now 800 units for working class families. So all of you law school students, please don't give up hope. There are houses that are going to be ready for you when you graduate or when you start your first job. There is a lot of hope out there. And I'm glad Keith mentioned the Kauiki Village project because I have a record because it was the city and the city council that helped to fund that project. And without the city, that project would not be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Up next, Bud Stonebraker.
Thank you. This is an interesting format. You know, we might be losing track of the questions here. This was about asset limited. That means people don't have enough. Income constrained. That means they don't make enough, but they are employed. And but this format lends to people just being able to kind of give their campaign promises. But we have to recognize, and by the way, I might be in that category. I'm not sure. I'm probably, you know, people talk about living in the poorest area. I'm the poorest candidate here. You know, and I haven't made making money the goal of my life or making power. But what I have noticed is that people are suffering. I live in Waimanalo, and I recognize that many people in that area are dependent upon our economy. We've lost about 150,000 people have lost their jobs. So sometimes when we talk about tourism, we have to remember this, that many jobs may not come back. If If tourists don't come back, sure, it might not be the ideal. And yes, it would be much better to grow our own food and have our own economy. But if we don't do something now, we will not have an economy to diversify. There will be no jobs. People will not go back to work. They will lose their houses. They will lose. Our city could look like Detroit. It could look like a ghost town. It could be very, very bad. So please don't listen to all the promises and the platitudes and the campaign speeches, because we have to face the fact that we have to keep our economy going. My wife puts it this way. She says, it's like we're in a boat and we're sinking. We have a bucket called the tourist economy, and we can bucket and get the water out of the boat. We also have a bilge pump that's going to take 8 hours to make, but we have just a few minutes. We have to make decisions so quickly. We can't try to diversify in a crashing economy. It just won't work. We will suffer tremendously. And another thing that we talk about, and is affordable housing, is that, I got this questionnaire the other day, and it talked about, would you commit to, as a mayor, developing a task force that would study and make recommendations for the audit that was recently done on the Department of Planning and Permitting? And it seemed to me like a trick question, because if I said yes, I would be agreeing with that. But if I said no, it would kind of give the impression that I don't think that the Department of Planning and Permitting needs to be restructured. But the fact of the matter is, by creating another task force, we're just doing more of the same things. These guys have plans. The plans are the problem. The government plans are the problem. The government needs to step back and allow the local people in their own communities to do the things that will help the houseless, and allow the local people to grow their own food, and allow the people to continue to live as they were without these heavy taxes and heavy pressure upon them. And so, please, as you're watching this, don't listen to all the promises that are made, because these policies have gotten us to where we are today. And so we will diversify, but we can't allow this ship to sink. We can't allow this economy to crash. We have to open up so that people can have their jobs and continue to work and provide for their families.
Thank you, Mr. Stonebraker. It was an interesting observation that Colleen Hanabusa made, that our poll showed that around 50% answered no to identifying as a Alice household. And I couldn't help but wonder, after you pointed that out, whether Alice households have time at 2 p.m. in the afternoon to be tuning into a live streaming event about their next 2020 mayoral candidate. And what that means for the future of civic participation and civic engagement when people can't afford the time to engage because they're working multiple jobs. Thank you again to our audience for bringing in these questions and polls. We do have one more main question, and then we're going to dive into questions from the audience as well.
I actually think we could shake it up for them a little bit and throw them off their game, maybe. We want to give you a couple of follow-up questions. This is going to be a yes or a no. We have 2 questions, and it's kind of a lot of work for you all to get up to the podium. So if you could just, from your seat, nod and say yes or no. Okay, the first question: do you think that adjusting property taxes for second homes or homes valued over $2 million is an effective means to creating more affordable housing? Yes, from Kym Pine.
Yes, from Kym Pine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, from Colleen Hanabusa. Yes, from Choon James.
Yes.
Yes, from Amemiya.
Yes.
Yes, from Mufi Hanneman.
Maybe.
And maybe.
Maybe.
You can't just blanket statement that. It's technical and nuanced.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true. But lightning round.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
Maybe.
Okay, the second question is kind of, we talked a lot about tourism and economy in our housing question, so we're going to throw this one at you. The number of visitors to Hawaii has been increasing annually for a number of years. Do you support a model for tourism that aims to attain 10 million visitors annually? 10 million visitors annually. Yes or no?
That
No.
keeps 10 million?
Do we
No.
support that?
Would you like it repeated?
Yeah.
Okay. The number of visitors to Hawaii has been increasing annually for a number of years. Do you support a model for tourism that aims to attain 10 million visitors annually, or below that number? Mufi?
No from Mufi Hanneman. No from
No,
Kym
it's
Pine.
actually over 10 million now.
No from Choon James.
No,
No from Colleen Hanabusa.
Unsustainable.
No from Mr. Stonebraker.
No.
No, from Kym Pine.
So less tourists than we have now. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll jump back into our next question.
Take it away, Keoni.
Mana, did you know that school districts
Did I know? The school district?
such as Boston, Chicago, Seattle, and Oakland include an Office of Equity charged with implementing equity plans to improve the systemic culture, conditions, and competencies of their education systems to better serve children and families of diverse backgrounds?
I did not know that. I did not know that there is such a thing as Office of Equity in Education. I don't know if our candidates do that either. Okay, so let's talk about this. What's the question?
Let's check in with our audience first, since we're
Good
talking
idea.
about equitable education. We're going to pull up a poll. If we can drop just a very brief question, keeping it real, do you feel like your education was equitable? We have 60% polling, not me. We have 3% polling, too shame for answer. About 40% of those respondents say that they felt like they had a equitable education. And for the audience, there's about 80, 90, going up to 100 people responding to this poll at the moment.
Okay, so now we're going to turn back to our candidates. We understand that equity and access to quality education is mainly a state issue. However, a skilled workforce is everyone's kuleana. As mayor, how will you support establishing an equity plan for the Hawaii public school system that goes both charters and DOE? Up first, Choon James. Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
If
Thank
you
you
can
so
please
much.
come up to the podium. And we're getting comfortable.
Oh, yeah. I thought we were still going to sit down there. That is actually a state kuleana. The state is over DOE and over the education. But hey, I am a mother of 5 public school children. And I certainly believe in public education. I believe in equity. And I certainly believe that there is more that we can help our school teachers. I mean, our school teachers are underpaid. I know that our responders, our first responders are underpaid. And so in that sense, as mayor, the city does have some involvement. Usually the land under the schools are usually county land, and there's is given by executive order to the state DOE for the land, but the city does use the school property for summer fun, and so there's less a lot of mixing. But if we're talking about income and this and that, I go back to the same premise that a government must set its priorities right. It must set its priorities right. And education, in my opinion, has got to be at the top all the time, because we're training minds. It's our human capital that we must cultivate. And so I'm all for what you folks are saying, and certainly equity, always equity. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Keith
Next,
Amemiya.
Keith Amemiya.
Equity and access to a quality education is important. I had the privilege of serving on the Board of Education for a number of years, and although strides were made in terms of equity, I know there's still quite a ways to go. When my campaign, or when all of us were facing the pandemic, my campaign pivoted away from campaigning for the mayoral race to helping the community. One of the things we did was provide over 14,000 meals to the community, including to low-income public school students in the Kalihi and Pololo areas. What we found out, or what I already knew, was that if school wasn't in session, lower-income public school students wouldn't have breakfast or lunch. I knew that if they went from March to August without a nutritious meal, that was simply too long to go without eating properly. I also found out, because the schools and the teachers at the schools who helped us with the meal distribution also gave out the lesson plans or packets to their public school students. And they expressed their frustration and concern about the students and their families. Many of the students didn't have laptops. Many of them didn't have other computer access. Many of them didn't have internet access at home, or many of them didn't even have phone access. So it was difficult to communicate with the students and their families, whereas in other well-heeled areas, that's not an issue. That's a glaring example of inequity and unfairness and how much harder it is to educate students in lower income areas. Another project that I was involved in when I was asked by the Department of Education about 7 years ago was to create a middle school sports program in the Waianae Nanakuli and Ka'u Pahoa regions. I was asked to help those areas because their students were struggling academically and there was a high demand for sports programs and other after-school activities. Through the help of a lot of corporate sponsors and generous individuals, we were able to raise nearly $1 million to kickstart a program for middle school students, both male and female, in those two regions. We were able to field sports teams in sports like football, volleyball, cross country, and track. We were also able to schedule tours of the University of Hawaii at Manoa. We also were able to provide study hall for these students and social services at their respective schools when they otherwise would not have received it. What it taught me was that lower income schools and lower income students, when given the same opportunities as schools and students in higher income areas, can do just as well, if not better, than their peers in those well-heeled areas. So as mayor, I will do whatever I can to ensure equity in our public schools and support whatever the Department of Education is trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith Amemiya. Mufi Hanneman.
This is a question anyone who wants to be mayor shouldn't punt on and say it's a state responsibility. I was blessed. I had a wonderful public school education, K through 6. I can name every one of my teachers at elementary school. I went to 3, Pilikai, Puhali, and Fern. My kindergarten teacher, Barbara Leong, who remembered me as the biggest Easter bunny during Halloween. I can remember my 6th grade teacher, Fern Takimoto at Fern Elementary School, said, "Young man," when I was 5 foot 11 inches tall, "exercise this and not just your body, because that is what's going to help you progress in life." So I bring to this a strong feeling and philosophy. I think this is an issue that I want to go back to my style of leadership when I was a mayor, where Mayor Kinoe of Hawaii Island, Mayor Cavallo of Maui, and Mayor Tavares of Maui, we worked collaboratively. And I think here's an opportunity to sit down with the governor and say, these are scarce resources. How can we help the state? How can we help the state achieve equity in education? I want to bring some of the things that I've done in the private sector, helping a group of young ladies attain college scholarships called Team Aloha, where we take the best of our scholar athletes to the state, they compete. I want to bring the philosophy of the Pacific Century Fellows, a leadership program, where we did a career crawl, where we went and basically mentored public school students and had them see through the eyes, through the lives of these Pacific Century Fellows, what's achievable, what they can dream for. I also believe there's an opportunity to engage the community and say, how can we set aside city property, city areas, so that high schools, intermediate, middle schools, elementary schools can be a part of that. There's so much that can be done here, but there's no question. If you live in Hawaii, it shouldn't matter whether you go to a public school, a private school, or a charter school. You should feel that you can be somebody, that you can grow up and attain the highest goals that you set out for yourself. That's why my parents moved here as immigrant folks many years ago. They said if it was not time enough for them, my mother with a 4th grade education, my father with a high school education, they wanted to make sure their children would reap the benefits of this dream. And that's what I want to do. I want to be that inspiration to bring together people from all sectors to make sure whether you go to a public school, private school, charter school, you are entitled to the best, to be the best, and you should try to achieve everything along the way, and government should help you.
Thank you so much. I want our viewers as well as our candidates to know that this question is from Native Hawaiian Education Council. So while it's a question that might seem like a state issue, it is Native Hawaiian Education Council is one of our sponsors, and they're very invested in Hawaiian issues and education issues. So we want to focus on that. Thank you. Kym Pine up next.
Thank you for that background. It's very important. And as was stated, this really is a state issue in terms of how the Department of Education is run. But as a mayor, what you can do to improve a child's education and access to education is to help improve their family. I represent some of the lowest income residents on the island. And improving the family can be done as a mayor. It is why when I was Parks Chair, nobody wanted to be Parks Chair because it didn't have any power, but I saw how if we improved our parks, add more staffing and community facilities where kids can go after school and use computers and have training, where they can, despite their family situation, they can be educated by friends and families and neighbors. It's why when I was on the Transportation Committee, I fought to help my constituents who are in traffic on the west side 3 to 4 hours a day away from their kids, integrating their family for numerous different results, from domestic abuse, lack of not even having time to help their kids with their homework. It's why I started the Hire Leeward program, where we helped 6,000 Leeward residents get jobs close to home. The number of jobs in my community, we pushed and worked with different businesses where it increased 200% in my district, whereas it only increased 4 to 5% in town. As a mayor, you can do a lot to strengthen the family. It is why I fought for connector roads and other things that would help get the parents home to their kids. It is why, even as a public education school student myself, I had great mentors because I was an all-star athlete, and I was given special attention because of that. And I want to give access to better parks for all of our kids, so they, like I was when my parents were also gone 3 to 4 hours a day, that I went to a great park after and was able to join the Olympic development team for soccer. It is why, as mayor, strengthening the family will be a top priority for me. With a strong family in a strong city and good facilities, our kids will have the care they need to have equality to education. And it is why, finally, as zoning and housing chair, I pushed to change the zoning to put housing on state land that's owned by the Department of Education that allows for affordable housing to be built. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly Marcos Pine. Up next, Mr. Stonebraker.
Thank you, Kim. I didn't know you were an all-star athlete. This is a good question. Equality in education means that we seek to provide equal opportunities for all the children of Hawaii. And I believe that this is incredibly crucial. It's important, but the solution to this is similar to my general approach to things, is that you can't have a top-down approach to some of these solutions. Many of them are community-based. And if people want to form a charter school or an education network, they ought to be able to do so with the help and not the opposition of the city government. Many years ago, we worked to reform the education system in Hawaii. And I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but there's only one district in Hawaii. There's one Board of Education. It's a real top-down system. So the Department of Education, the DOE here in Honolulu, rules over things that happen in Maui and Kauai and Hawaii and all that stuff. So what we have is a very centralized system. And if we continue to try to do things like this, we're going to find that we'll be frustrated because more and more money will be spent, as it has been, and less results will be seen from it. When we tried to make some of those changes many years ago, we discovered that with the top sort of heavy system that we have, of every dollar spent on education, only 49 cents got to the classroom. And so that kind of issue, that affects everybody, but it affects the equality in education because it makes it so difficult for people in their communities to provide the education, especially Native Hawaiians. You know, there are many charter schools that are teaching Aloha Hawaii, so that is one of those positive things, but we ought to have, as the city government, a proactive and a friendly approach when it comes to things like zoning, when it comes to things like land use. And we can do that. We can provide that by taking a less direct approach and more of a supportive approach as the city. So that's my position on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Up next, Colleen Hanabusa.
Thank you. I can understand why the Native Hawaiian Education Council asked this question. It is because a good part of their funding comes from the federal government, and still in Washington, D.C., we have to fight the bias that it is somehow race-based. You know, I've had the good fortune of being able to pass through the Native Hawaiian Education Act amendments along with the American Indians and Alaska Natives because of relationships. And I've always said relationships matter, especially in this time of COVID, relationships matter. This because who is now the Dean of the House, Don Young of Alaska, as well as Tom Cole of Oklahoma, stood by me and said, you have to pass Native Hawaiian education along with everyone else. Or Don Young said, or I'm going to go vote with the Democrats and see how you like that. But the Dean does that. That's what it's all about. So it's those kinds of relationships, and it's the ability to have a mayor and someone who can go to DC and fight for your causes. In addition to that, you know, as I said earlier in my response on the Aina Aloha, what matters, especially from areas like Waianae, where I grew up, and when it's Waianae Elementary School, it's hope and pride. You have to be able to build that. And you know, especially for young girls, I also sat on gender equity in sports, and that was during the Governor Cayetano's last term. And let me ask, how many people even knew that Title IX existed? And it was the creation of Patsy Mink, and it is the Patsy Mink Act now. And it is basically one sentence. That one sentence is extremely powerful because that is the ultimate form of equity in education. Yes, it may be used for sports primarily, but it doesn't just limit it to sports. So when we start to look at this, and how can you use that as a city? You can use it with parks. You can use it with afternoon types of programs. Look at all the feeder types of events, whether it's soccer or baseball or PAL football. It's all in the parks that they are using. That's where you can do it. And add to that the girls and the ability to play. And ability to play when scouts are looking at them. That is equity, gender equity in sports. Let's not forget, we have to have relationships to get the primary funding through, especially for Native Hawaiian education in Washington, D.C. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Colleen Hanabusa. We're going to move to a question that we got here in the chat from our audience. The question is, how do you plan to restart the economy if attaining federal funding, if getting federal funding is unattainable? I believe, what are your plans to restart the economy if we're unable to access more stimulus funding? I guess is the gist of the question. I guess these questions, if you can respond within a minute, that'd be great. We'll start from Keith Amemiya.
Well, it's clear we need to do what we can to restart tourism. I know the governor has made an announcement on how tourists can come to Hawaii and avoid being quarantined, and that's a big first step. So we need to do what we can to reopen our economy, but at the same time, keep our residents and workers safe. That obviously takes testing, contact tracing, and treatment. We also need to use our own common sense and practice social distancing and wearing a mask. Besides that, we've talked about this as well. We need to start now on diversifying our economy. To be sure, it's going to take a while, but we need to start. We can't delay that anymore. Fields like agriculture and aquaculture are areas that have already started in small pockets across the island, and we need to replicate it and make it on a much larger scale basis. Mahalo.
Thank you, Keith. Amemiya? Mufi Hanneman.
I think this question speaks to why Mufi Hanneman is your best candidate to go back to his old job again. There will be federal funding. We already know that there's going to be a stimulus package that will bring in infrastructure. And the beauty with my relationships in Washington, I've served 2 Democratic presidents. I've served 2 Republican presidents. It doesn't matter if it's a President Trump administration again or President Biden. I can work both sides of the aisles. I can make sure that that federal funding will come here. And there's no question, tourism is our main industry. We need to see what kind of federal assistance we have because it's also small businesses that are going to be affected. And last but not least, I want to say that very honored to have done Title IX gender equity in honor of Patsy Mink to rename under my watch the Central Wall Regional Park after Patsy Mink for Title IX. Thank you, Colleen, for that reminder.
Thank you, Mufi Hanneman. Ms. Marcos Pine.
I've been working on the last 3 years knowing that we were at risk with our current economy to fail. It is why I've partnered with 80,000 farmers across Polynesia to help to corner the ulu breadfruit market. We believe in 6 months that we have a new technology that we're working with inventors that can create our own energy. Exxon wants to buy this invention, but the inventor is pro-Hawaii and wants this invention to stay here. Within 6 months, not only can we create a multi-billion-dollar market through cornering the market with breadfruit that has numerous different uses, but we also have a way to create our own energy so that we are not dependent on oil. We can do this within 6 months and create a multi-billion-dollar without federal funding.
Thank you. Mr. Stonebraker.
Thanks. As I've mentioned before, you know, the illustration that helps us to understand this is that we're in a boat that's sinking. If we don't bail out the water right away with the economic driver of tourism that we have, we may not recover. Thousands of people may have to leave the islands because they'll be priced out of living here. People will lose their jobs. If the hotels don't open up at 45 to 50%, they simply will not open. And so we have to consider the ramifications of not taking this opportunity. Yes, we do want to diversify our economy, and we will. However, we can't ignore the fact that our only hope right now is to relax some of these mandates, focus them primarily on the elderly and those who are most vulnerable, and we have to let the tourists come in. And we have to allow them to provide those jobs that we need for our local people here. We want to have a Ka Waiwai economy above all else, serving the local people first and foremost. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stonebraker. Colleen Hanabusa.
Thank you. I'm probably one of the few people who've actually read the HEROES Act, which has passed the House of Representatives and is now stuck in the Senate. I believe the HEROES Act will pass because I believe even the Republicans in the Senate are not going to be able to stop that, given the fact that it affects so many American people. And I think when they really look at it, it's going to go. I also served on the leadership team, 14 of us of Nancy Pelosi. And I will tell you, Nancy Pelosi's mantra has always been that we will do infrastructure. And infrastructure, we've been hearing that for how many presidents? But we do know infrastructure needs to be changed. It is in the time of now, like COVID, that it is perfect, like the time of FDR. This is time that we need to have all of that infused into our economy. And I believe it will happen. So we also need, what the city needs to do is to kickstart its construction industry, because that is something with a great multiplier effect that we all know. Mahalo.
Thank you, Colleen Hanabusa. Choon James.
How many of you folks know Uncle Walter Reedy? He is certainly Mr. Aloha Aina. He will survive whether the whole global economy tank or whether there is not a single penny coming from the federal government. He will survive and he will thrive and he will live well because he was prepared. And may I remind ourselves that once Hawaii was a thriving country, and it did not have any poor among them. And it is possible, I'm confident that we will get the Heroes Act funds, like Colleen said. I'm confident that we will be able to turn this around. We do have a lot of people and we do have a lot of resilience. And if we work together, if we give and take, and if we sacrifice, and if we help each other out, I've been encouraging people to just plant. When you plant your tapioca, when you plant your taro, when you plant your sweet potato, plant a little bit more so that you can share with your neighbors. Aloha.
Thank you, Choon James. We're coming close to our ending time, but we do have time for one final question from our audience. I'll go ahead and ask it, and once again, if we can keep this response to 1 minute. Sean asked the question. He asked, as current circumstances force our communities online to meet their commerce and collaboration needs, what do the candidates plan to do to invest in the tech space and bring more technology industry to Hawaii and to support online commerce for local small businesses? If we can start with Mr. Mufi Hanneman.
That's definitely an option that we need to do more of. More and more people are going online. I can tell you my administration will reflect that example, but not only supporting that, but in the way we do business at the city. Department of Planning and Permit is an exact case of what I'm talking about. More technology needs to be brought there. We used to do online application, online permitting. When I was mayor, somehow it went away. We're going to bring that back, but that's going to reflect every part of the city that we do. We did a wonderful job with Gordon Bruce at the helm. We brought us out of the 20th century into the 21st century. You can expect full support from me in online, other technology initiatives that make our city a better place to live, work, and play.
Thank you very much. Up next, Ms. Marcos Pine.
Thank you so much for this question. I've been working on something like this for about 4 years to make Hawaii one of the smartest cities in the world. I've been looking at models in Taiwan and Singapore and South Korea, where I can create new technology with these partnerships that will make the city more efficient, where we can create building systems within our Department of Planning and Permitting, where instead of you having taking 2 years to get your permit just to build a fence, it will take just 2 weeks. We have also worked with the car dealerships who have taken months just to register their cars. Other cities across the nation have high technology to make sure you can do it from your home. Again, building strong families means more time with your family in a more efficient city. It's why I proposed a 4-day work week for our city workers. Everyone said it couldn't be done because we didn't have the technology. So I started to push the city to change their technology and improve it so we could do it. And during COVID-19, it proved that we can do it, have stronger families and more time with each other because we have a smart city. Thank you.
Mr. Stonebraker.
Thanks. This is one of those questions that I find interesting that a mayoral candidate will get. You know, sometimes we get questions like, how are you going to solve global warming? How are you going to diversify the economy? How are you going to, and this is a good question. It's a very important question, high tech and internet access and so forth in the community. It's wonderful. However, let's remember that the city government's job is to pick up the abandoned vehicles, to enforce the laws, and to fix the roads. And I'm running, and I often tell people, partially in jest, but in all seriousness, that I'm running to be the janitor in chief. And I pledge to fix the roads. And the people of Hawaii, if we give them the freedom to do so, they will diversify the economy. They will upgrade different systems that we have. We just have to do what we're required to do by the Constitution and by our oath that will provide the people of Hawaii with the services, the people of Honolulu, I should say, with the services that they pay for. And so that will be my priority, the roads.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hanabusa.
Thank you. I don't believe government, city, federal, or state is so siloed that it doesn't have some sort of interaction between everyone. Let us understand one thing. I've always been a proponent of technology, and that's why from even prior to being elected to public office, Sea Rider Productions at Waianae High School was such a major situation. And those of you who know it also know that they're into 3D printing, all these different kinds of technologies that has great applications across the way, and that is what we need to do. The second thing that you can look to me in terms of doing something about technology and getting people involved is, You may not remember this, but in 2008, I took this Hawaii State Senate absolutely paperless. And in that process, people can interact, people can submit testimony, and also it makes very relevant what they say. The House followed suit, I think, about 7 years later. But we in the Senate at that time were completely paperless. That's what the city should do. We did it in 2008. Imagine what we can do if we were to take that mindset and take it to the city. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ms. Hanabusa. Choon James.
COVID-19 has shown us that we can testify and we don't have to be at the city council. And this is something that we have talked about for a long time. And I am from Singapore. Singapore is a smart city. And here we can do the same thing. It will be a great equalizer to our people who are living in Waianae or Waimanalo or Kaneohe or Kahuku. It will be a great equalizer. And I would certainly be very, very enthusiastic and very supportive in making it happen. And also, technology is just not to improve the city. It can improve our entrepreneurships. Israel is really big now on artificial intelligence. We can do that just as well. So the world is flat when it comes to technology, and we must embrace it. We can do it. And we can do it well because I know we have the best and the smartest people here on Oahu.
Thank you, Choon James. Last but not least, keep Amemiya.
Technology is another area which we can utilize to diversify our economy and wean off our overdependence on tourism. In terms of city services, we should use technology and embrace it to make city services faster, more efficient, and more customer friendly. We can utilize it in areas like the Department of Planning and Permitting, real property, and even motor vehicle registration. We can and should use technology much quicker and much faster to help our economy. The final area that we should use technology for and why it's important is it'll bring back people from the mainland, especially younger people, and also keep younger people here. Technology can provide higher paying jobs so that younger people can afford to stay here and maybe one day afford to buy a home or condominium for them and their families. Mahalo.
Mahalo. On behalf of ʻAhahui o Hawaii, Every1ne Hawaii, Aloha Rising, and Native Hawaiian Education Council, we want to thank all of our candidates for coming. To our viewers, we would like to remind you that if you're not registered to vote, the deadline for the primary election is this Thursday, July 9th. So please register online at olvr.hawaii.gov.
And a final reminder, we encourage all of you, millennials and Gen Z, to please mask up and stay safe out there. We have a duty to our kupuna and the young ones around us as well. We're still fighting COVID-19 and we ain't pow yet. So please be safe. Aloha.
Aloha, everyone.